Hello there. No matter how soon you watch this, the reference I'm leaning hard into right now is both topical after the May 31st release date, as well as dated by the July premiere of this video. If you get it, you get it. Whoever would be foolish enough to mock this person has already had content blow them off the face of this platform. If you think about it, it's quite scary, because I feel like it is my obligation as a content creator to let you know that I'm a piece of shit got rather close to talking about me in that video. As you can see here, that is my hat next to Cody Leach in this shot right here. Oh, also it's my head and torso, etc. I'm sorry, I thankfully this bit is dated. I don't have the patience to do this voice, no matter how pretentious and stuck up I am about being a gatekeeper for comedy, which is what this category is. Without further ado, the original WILIscredia top half of the May 31 on 31, with the original shot England version of 31 through 16, and an updated top 15 for this July release. I'm late, or you can call me your headliner, which is fitting because I'm a comedian and we're covering comedy. Why the fuck did he film like this? What makes us laugh? Where does the magic of comedy truly originate? Is it the clever wit of the writer, the visionary direction of the filmmaker, or the comedic prowess of the star? In this special May 2024 edition of 31 on 31, we explore the comedic landscape and delve deep into the heart of laughter, seeking to unravel the mysteries behind what tickles our funny bone and leaves us in stitches. You may be shocked to know that this may be the most that Autopstream will be divided, from classic slapstick to subtle genre, from absurd antics to sharp social commentary. Comedy has the power to entertain, enlighten, and connect us through shared laughter. So buckle up and get ready to embark on a hilarious and insightful ride as we explore the age-old question: who truly holds the key to comedy's heart? The writer, the director, or the star? For this gathering of 31 on 31, whether it be Mel Brooks, Edgar Wright, or Martin McDonagh's In Bruges, we hold all three pieces of the puzzle up against one another in a thematic hybrid for a night of comedy. Good evening, B's, G's, NB's, Peens, Vagines, and in-betweens. I am Sipo, otherwise known as Charles. Welcome to WILIscredia. Welcome to yet another edition of 31 on 31. This is the biannual or 6-month edition of 31 on 31, titled A Night of Comedy. Normally, I'd tell you that our opinions are right and wrong. They're our own. But this time, talking about comedy, there is only one member of Autopstream who is the most qualified to be covering this subject.
And it's me.
The sole bona fide professional in the comedy field.
I am a surgeon!
Wow, you guys, if it misses with you guys, huh? Nope, keep going, next.
I am a surgeon!
I'm not claiming to be an expert, mind you. I'm just the only one who has worked in the field and can tell you about how humor works from its inception through to a finished product. In combination with all of the Autopstream crew, which includes Sean, Cody, Brian, and now Rudy officially, we all ranked 31 films, which follows a thematic through line for this month. And that is, who is responsible for comedy? Or better yet, who is responsible for comedy's greatness? The writer, the director, or the star? And yes, Mel Brooks is actually all of those things. Now, before any of you start chiming in with Charlie Chaplin, Monty Python, or Werner Herzog, just relax. We're not saying that these 31 films are the greatest of all time. We're just saying for this little crop, we're going to be ranking these 31 against each other. In no way are we saying that these are the 31 best comedies of all time. It's just 31 within a set group. We've been doing this for over 5 years now. You would think you'd figure it out by now.
Please, can we just calm the fuck down?
Although, for the sake of my monetization, comment down below and let me know just who it is that I've missed out of this list and how crazy I am. Whether or not you agree with me, just comment down below and tell me I'm crazy. Comedy and horror have very close similarities in fandom, and by that I mean both comedy and horror can be thought of and praised by fans without necessarily being a great movie. If a comedy makes you laugh without being the greatest story, you'll forgive that in a comedy. If a horror movie has particularly big scares, you'll forgive that. If a horror has huge effects that really make you grossed out, you're paying for that experience. But if the story is great, that's just an extra bonus. Horror and comedy are very similar in the fact that they don't necessarily need to be a perfectly well-oiled machine to be considered an enjoyable time or something you'll go back to. And which gets me into this list. Some of these movies will be ranked by me based on their ability to make me laugh. Some of them will be ranked based on the quality of the film, and probably near the top, some of these movies will have both. Any given time you ask me about this list, a year from now, 6 months from now, tomorrow, I could put these movies in different order for different reasons. Although, as recording, these are the 31 that I have in this order. And also, we'll be covering Martin McDonagh's In Bruges because Brian. So here it is, 31 on 31, A Night of Comedy. Number 31, Road Trip. Probably every one of these movies to people have some sort of value, some sort of nostalgia purpose to everybody. What makes people laugh is what makes people laugh. All of this is subjective. Having said that, Road Trip is a movie that even when it first came out and I watched it as a kid,
cool.
Other than the Tom Green bit, this is a movie that I just kind of never really got, never thought that it was something that was a must watch. Yet still, if you compare these 31 to other lists in the past, this is still a pretty good entry for a number 31, but it is my least favorite of the 31. Number 30, Zoolander. Yeah, another one that I just didn't align with society when this won a bunch of people over. I get it, there's some really talented comedic actors and directors and stars. Ben Stiller is in the argument up against those of Mel Brooks for people who can create and get in front of a camera and do a damn good job with comedy. Having said that, Zoolander it doesn't hit any mark for me. It's a no from me, dog. Number 30, Zoolander. 29, Step Brothers. Yeah, we'll talk about it later, but the whole Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly thing, I was okay with it in 1 or 2 movies, and Step Brothers appeared to be the peak of people just wanting an excess of these two together. I never really bought into this particular version from these two comedic actors, even though John C. Reilly does quite a bit of other work. Number 28, Anchorman. I realize a lot of you Will Ferrell fans are probably clicking off by this point. It's a great meme-worthy movie, but the issue with comedy, just like there is an issue with horror, is it loses its touch if you know what's coming. And Anchorman just isn't a movie that I think the humor is strong enough for me to go back and watch. And once I know what's happening, it just doesn't hit the same anymore. This story isn't strong enough and the jokes don't last. By that, I mean on repeat watches, it doesn't hit the same way for me. I can only imagine what you're typing right now or where you've gone. Number 27, Knocked Up. Judd Apatow getting a bit closer to the grown-up material. And it's a better light story than it is a comedy, although it kind of dances back and forth between the two. Katherine Heigl, I don't know if there were a different female actor in the role for comedic purposes if it would make it stronger, and it's more a funny drama than it is a R-rated comedy. But there are pieces that I would like to see fixed, and of those pieces, Katherine Heigl's one of them. Number 26, Weird Science. A lot of movies from the 80s and 90s, well, maybe the 80s more than anything. My uncles, who were older than me by anywhere from 5 to 15 years older than me, they would watch movies, these teenage young adult comedies that were PG-13 by today's standards, but I guess PG or R back then. And this was one of them that, like, I know the words to. There are lines that I quote that I don't feel incredibly strong about their humor. I just have it embedded in the back of my head. This is just one of those movies that is like a staple of my childhood, and it's more background noise than anything. I enjoy some aspects of it, and, you know, one of them being a young kid who thinks girls are pretty. And unfortunately, this leans on that a bit. But again, going back for a repeat viewing, this doesn't hit the same way. Number 25, Vacation, not the 2015 version, but the original Vacation. This is a good comedy. There are parts that I think still are funny, and it's quotable. The asking for directions in the bad part of town.
This'll just make us appreciate what we have. Roll them up.
That still gets me because there's still bad parts of town today.
Pardon me. I wonder if you could tell me how to get back on the expressway.
Hey, fuck your mama.
Thank you very much.
24 is 40-Year-Old Virgin. This is a better mix of humor and story, a decent enough premise. Number 23, The World's End, a far better movie than a comedy, which I feel bad saying this, and that this is kind of a testament to what else I have in this list above this movie, because I think Edgar Wright is the best thing we have in the 21st century as far as comedic directors are concerned. But there is an awful lot of nostalgia, an awful lot of comedy that is in this list that I go to for different reasons. And of the Cornetto trilogy, The World's End is the one I go to least, even though it's still very strong. As far as comedy is concerned, it's probably my least favorite Edgar Wright film, including stuff that we don't have in this list. Number 22, In Bruges. I know some of you have said this before, that there are a fair amount of these films that don't really match, and you would replace this with that and this with that. Comment down below, let me know what you would replace. I look at this 31 and I see 30 traditional comedies and In Bruges. And again, Brian, don't get me wrong, I love dark black humor. I don't think there's enough that we can make a list isolated on 31 dark comedies. It's a great movie, but in this category, it just doesn't fit for me. 3 Billboards is a better time for me. As far as comedy is concerned, 7 Psychopaths, a bit more fun for me. But we're talking about In Bruges. 21, Talladega Nights, funnier Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly moments that I enjoy. This one's a bit more quotable. I'm all hopped up on Mountain Dew. I'll say that at inappropriate times that have nothing to do with Mountain Dew. As a vanilla Coke supporter, I'll say I'm all hopped up on Mountain Dew. So many lines in that movie that I appreciate far more than anything, and it's a bit more silly than anything. And I enjoy it far more than Step Brothers. I feel like Step Brothers was something that kind of leaned into the success of this film. Number 20, Funny People, a great story. And this is probably when Judd Apatow started straying away from comedy and more into drama. It's very funny and it's a very good story. It just isn't perfect at either. As a comedian, as somebody who can relate to a bunch of the stuff that happens in this movie, I enjoy this movie for certain reasons, but lumped into this category, I have other things that I go to for this. There are certainly other combinations of 31 that Funny People would be higher for me, but it's not this list. This has been the hardest list for me to do thus far, and I'm not kidding. ironically. 19 is Happy Gilmore, another movie that's more fun than a great story, but another movie that's infinitely quotable. And as somebody who's played hockey more than anything, the hockey player who introduces hockey elements into a golf story, great time. Adam Sandler in the 90s was just the best version of the content he's put out, comedically speaking. Number 18, Old School, and this is more for comedic purposes than the storytelling purposes. Again, quotable. 17, Hangover. It's kind of both. I really enjoyed the way that this story was told, and I found a lot of the humor humorous. And I think I'm unfairly judging this movie because of the subsequent sequels, and the joke got old, certainly by the second one and absolutely by the third one, where it was just like, guys, what are we doing? But we're not covering those two, so I don't know why I'm discussing that right now. My problem is when it comes to comedy and comedy movies and a lot of other things for that matter, I gatekeep and get all hipster-ish about things. And the more people quoted Hangover and it became more of a society thing, the less I wanted to talk about it, the less I wanted to watch it. Number 16, Airplane. Not the only spoof comedy we have here, but a very strong one. So where was I? As a kid of the 80s and 90s, Airplane is one of those movies that just infinitely gets quoted. A lot of these movies on this list are better. We kind of get spoiled. And then when you have decent movies that are very much like the films of yesteryear, even though it's something like Scary Movie, Not Another Teenage Movie, those are quite good and just better for different reasons for different generations, but still following in the same steps of Airplane. Airplane is quite smart, and I would say that about a lot of other spoof comedies. You really need to be in the right mood for it. You need to have some sort of attachment to the source material being roasted. In the 70s, they had a lot of disaster movies, and there was a lot of airport movies. So I guess you can watch Airplane and sort of understand what they're going for. Doesn't click the same way it would if you were around in the 70s. Not that I was, or 80s, whatever. I.e. Deadpool and Wolverine for anything released in the comic book universe in the last 20 years. Yes, Deadpool and Wolverine, quite topical. I've taken a while to get here. Number 15, There's Something About Mary. There's Something About Mary, the Farrelly Brothers movie starring Cameron Diaz and Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller is quite prevalent in this list, if I do say so. I don't think I was old enough to see this movie as it was rated R, but I was working at the movie theater at the time when this came out. And it's the first time that, I got a front row seat of just how much a movie can just absolutely annihilate an audience without really getting much of the context. It was one of those things where, if I'm not mistaken, it was around the same time that Armageddon came out. That was my first weekend working at the movie theater. I didn't get to work that much because I was a minor, but Armageddon was a big deal back then, and I think There's Something About Mary was a week or two after that, maybe a couple of weeks. Armageddon was a big deal, it was an expected big deal, but There's Something About Mary, nobody had heard of it, and it just going in there into the theater itself every now and again, just hearing the humongous laughs. It was so off guard. And then every now and again, kid, you're to look at the screen, and just to see some of the jokes and gags that were happening there. I remember unrated versions of DVDs where the really dirty stuff was actually on the home video release. There's Something About Mary was the first time where the zipper bit, how'd you get the beans above the frank? The reaction to that spot is just legendary, just absolutely legendary. It's something that I keep trying to tell Emily to cover for Stalker Month because it's just about stalkers. Number 14, Multiplicity. Some of the things about comedies and society as a whole is we progress and things aren't funny that were 20 years ago, or things would be funny if they were a little bit different. I think Multiplicity is one of those movies where you could probably redo it. I'm not asking you to. It's one of those movies where if you do it today, the clones would be different. Like the more effeminate version would maybe be non-binary or identify as a woman. That's something that you may enter today's society with if you're trying to make that movie today, but they were restricted by their time. It's not the film's fault that what happens in it is of its time. It's not really offensive. And Michael Keaton always has been a very, very good comedic actor. And to see him in like a prehistoric version, not that prehistoric, but Eddie Murphy and Dr. Dolittle was incredible in that table dinner scene. But we had like a sneak peek of it. While I don't think the story is that strong, we're getting to stuff that is just like comfort food for me. And Multiplicity is one of those movies that it's just comfort food for different reasons. You know how many trailers I would have if I had 17 different Charleses? Number 13, Coming to America. I believe this is one of Cody's hard-fought picks, and it's funny, we do have a shortage of Eddie Murphy if you're of the mentality that the star is what makes comedy great. And Eddie Murphy, especially with him coming back around these days, hopefully if we do something like this in the future, Beverly Hills Cop might be something that we re-enter into the discussion. Eddie Murphy is a very, very strong comedic actor, and the fact that he wasn't even in his 30s and like really annihilated the 80s is something special. Between his stand-up sets, his time on SNL, and his films throughout the 80s. Thinking maybe Trading Places should have been here too, but in Bruges. But Coming to America, brilliant comedy. I think us New Yorkers really get spoiled with things. My doctor is right by where McDowell's used to be. Well, never was. Eddie Murphy is one of those multi-generational, a lot of people get Eddie Murphy, and he's very funny. Number 12, The Cable Guy. Ben Stiller's kind of all over this list, whether it be in front of the screen or behind the camera. It's interesting. He's barely in this movie. He directed it. Another movie that covers stalking. If there's something about Mary is dark but smiley about it, The Cable Guy is dark but dark about it. The fact that Jim Carrey totally took on this role and was believable is really incredible, and we got a taste of just how much range Ben Stiller had as a comedic filmmaker is concerned. I don't understand why this movie just kind of got passed over in that generation. I guess people are expecting Jim Carrey to be Ace Ventura. This isn't really that. It's very dark, even in like the tone of the film. It's, if you don't play the humor straight for laughs, it could be perceived as something akin to Single White Female. It's dark, but it's very funny. There are a lot of things that people don't like that are dark in Bruges, but they really work. And Cable Guy, I guess, here's your point, Brian. Cable Guy is dark and probably would be in a list with In Bruges, but still a better time for me. Number 11 is Kingpin, the Farrelly Brothers. This is a movie that I watched as an idiot kid, and this is like heavy nostalgia scoring here. Again, another movie that the DVD is quite different than whatever I've watched recently. There's like an extra 10-15 minutes. This film is raunchy. It's dirty, a bit too much so, but again, keep in mind, I've seen the unrated cut first. Randy Quaid as an innocent Amish guy who likes to bowl, it's just funny. Woody Harrelson, another guy that really doesn't get credit for his comedic chops, a really good time. It makes me think things like this. I wonder if we were to make, don't let the comedian think about 31s. But if we had like buddies, a straight man and a funny guy, how many movies would we have duos with? And I really feel like Kingpin is quite a duo with Woody Harrelson and Randy Quaid. And Vanessa Angel, I think she had lines too. I'm pretty sure of that. Number 10 is Spaceballs. Again, nostalgia is heavy, but Mel Brooks knows how to do all of the things very well. Right, direct and star. This is a Star Wars fan speaking, but it works on so many different levels for me. There are references that I didn't get, like the comb, when they're combing the desert, the play on words is there. It was funny. I didn't understand the reference to the smaller comb. We ain't found shit. But over the course of time, as you grow up, as you find out stereotypes and things like that, it's just really funny. It's really funny. As a Star Wars fan, hearing that George Lucas loved this movie, that's fun. Being able to laugh at yourself is quite a good thing. Spaceballs it's just a great time. It might be a little dated, but a lot of comedy that you have today has learned a lot of their lessons from films of yesteryear. And Spaceballs, anything that Mel Brooks has done, there's a ton of things where Mel Brooks has really molded visual comedy for filmmaking. Number 9, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. John Hughes really knew how to make movies for teenagers in the 80s. And then he started making family stuff in the 90s, and we won't talk about that. As somebody who's cut many a time in my life, you can't do half of the things that they did in that movie. I'm sorry. I don't care if you live in Chicago. It's both a contained, decent story for what it is, and funny. The fact that it mixes both so well, the story and the comedy, is something that is why it's so high for me. Next is Blazing Saddles. I understand a lot of you Mel Brooks fans are, I don't know. And for people who say that you can't make Blazing Saddles today, you can. Big Hollywood is just a little too safe and scared of backlash. People can make it. There have been non-big budgeted things that are risque that still test the boundaries. And every now and again, we get something pretty close. I mean, nothing as perfect as Blazing Saddles. First movie that I was introduced to Madeline Kahn. Madeline Kahn, one of my, if not my favorite female comedian actress. A really funny movie, and more so after I've taken in a bit more of the Western genre. The reason that people think Blazing Saddles and Archie Bunker are things that you can't do today is because you're not thinking about the content within the humor. This movie covers racism, but the people who are racist are the butt ends of the joke. I don't think that portion is sticking with people. Just like Archie Bunker. Archie Bunker is wrong in those shows. Everybody around him is there for the irony's sake to let you're using Archie Bunker as a gauge. Yeah, this isn't a very good take, but I really feel like some people look at things like that and Blazing Saddles and think, oh, you can't tell racist jokes anymore like you used to. And it's not that. The singing scene at the train tracks is showing that the white guys are stupid. I don't know how else you take things like that. We have gotten a little sensitive about things, but I don't think movies like Blazing Saddles have just died out. I just don't think, as far as big budgets are concerned, you won't get people taking risks like this. But it's a spectacular movie. Gorgeous, great cinematography, beautiful movie, kind of spoofs society, and it's funny and sharp. But Blazing Saddles is just legendary. It's one of those movies that the legend is probably bigger than what you witness in today's day and age because, again, especially with comedy, especially with horror, the titans of yesteryear have molded what has happened ever since. So huge jokes from the past have been traversed and added to and done a different way. We're 50 plus years removed from Blazing Saddles humor, and who knows how much of what we've watched since then has been molded by this movie. So whether or not you like Blazing Saddles, if you name something that is kind of edgy that you do like that has come out since, there's probably some sort of thing baked into it that was inspired by Blazing Saddles. I realize that's not a good argument if you're trying to watch Blazing Saddles, but comedy more than anything, the older, not sharp stuff doesn't mean that it's not good. But Blazing Saddles, quite incredible. My top 10. You can move these around any different way, and I'm not really arguing that much. Number 7, Groundhog Day. Bill Murray. You want to talk about people in front of the camera. Bill Murray is a comedian's comedian. Very sharp, very funny, very dry, very cynical. This is the Daddy Mac. Whenever you see something like Happy Death Day or a ton of other movies that are essentially Groundhog Day but blank, you don't understand just how creative and funny this movie is until you've watched, 4 or 5 watered down versions of this very movie. And the fact that the original still hits, again, comedy fades due to society moving forward, but Groundhog Day still hits quite hard for me, and it's quite sharp, quite funny, and it's a decent story. Again, no Oscar contenders here, but a really good time. Number 6, Dumb and Dumber. For those of you who think that I'm being cruel to Will Ferrell, I understand it. The Jim Carrey era appears to be more what I grew up with and something that, I hitched my wagon to, so to speak, as far as comedy that was in cinemas and stuff that we watched at home. Dumb and Dumber is hysterical. It is the fine balance between something like Kingpin and There's Something About Mary. It isn't too edgy. It has a couple of crash jokes, but it's just about, again, two buddies. And it's just funny. It's funny to laugh at stupid shit. And this movie is called Dumb and Dumber. If you're taking this movie seriously, you're gonna have a bad time. Number 5, Young Frankenstein. Sorry guys, my favorite Mel Brooks movie is Young Frankenstein. The horror fan in me enjoys the homage. I think it is a great homage to Frankenstein. But as far as the humor and everything, it works on its own. And obviously, Abby Normal. There are jokes that you probably wouldn't have without understanding the source material. But it holds its own. And again, Madeline Kahn. You could say what you want about all of these Mel Brooks movies. Madeline Kahn is the person that I go to more than anything when it comes to Mel Brooks. I realize that's probably sacrilege for some people, but yeah, I don't know if there's a comparable actress, period. Number 4, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. The thing about this list is there's a bunch of like tentpole movies that have some sort of synonymous thing, well, at least in American culture. And Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, again, straight man and wacky guy. There's a bunch of them in this list. John Candy, another guy in front of the camera that is just legendary, awesome. Steve Martin as the straight man in this is hysterical. And who couldn't relate to the many things that happen over the course of this movie, just trying to get home, trying to travel, and having to deal with the bullshit that is Thanksgiving and the lead up to trying to get to family, even though you don't really want to. All right, so you Brits, I guess it would be Christmas. Thanksgiving's like a really big family holiday here in the States, and the movie really kind of nails everything about Thanksgiving. If you can watch something about Halloween and get the essence of what's going on with Halloween, a Christmas movie, and get the essence of the Christmas time. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is a brilliant way to tell a comedy angle on what we do just to get to the events that are Thanksgiving. And I guess if you want to watch something that actually covers the holiday itself, maybe Home for the Holidays, that could be number 31. Number 3, Shaun of the Dead. I said it earlier, way back in England, and I'll say it again here in New York. Perhaps the best comedic filmmaker of the 21st century is Edgar Wright. And Shaun of the Dead is another movie that you could say is a spoof, an homage, but another movie that on its own is hysterical. Do you need to see all of these movies that are kind of being aped in Shaun of the Dead? No, but it certainly makes the experience better. And forgetting all that, Edgar Wright is a brilliant filmmaker. There's plenty of humor. The sight gags are awesome, but he's really well thought out. And all you need to do is watch any special features on how well planned a simple shot, the editing of the TV sequence when they first find out, that is just really sharp and incredibly well thought out. Edgar Wright production is so glossy, up and down. And believe it or not, Shaun of the Dead is not my tippy top as far as Edgar Wright is concerned. Well, at least from these three. That would go to Hot Fuzz. This movie came out, I think, back when Point Break was still kind of a joke. We've witnessed that the original Point Break has kind of come back around to be okay to enjoy again. But when you consider, as I've experienced, when you consider what the UK is like and how they are, the classic British understatement, this movie really nails both things well. The prototypical American cop action movie, buddies again, and the juxtaposed quiet life of the UK. I didn't realize just how on the nose this movie is with the representation of small town England until I've spent a fair amount of time there. The spot of bother, they really say shit like that. You could be missing an arm or an arm off and they'll just understate it. And it's actually funnier for me now. I would tell you, if you think Hot Fuzz is funny, for like the just homages to classic action, and a lot of it is American action, and the cinematography, again, visually stunning, just brilliant looking movie. But a lot of it is just so perfectly achieved. The juxtaposition between the small town but the big time action, and I can't tell you how hard I've laughed at this movie on like repeat watches since being in England. This movie is my favorite Edgar Wright movie of all time. But in this list, my number one is Tropic Thunder. Ben Stiller actually directed this and was part of the cast. The thing about Tropic Thunder is it's a great movie. Another one of those movies, granted, we're coming up on 20 years since that movie came out, but another one of those movies that you can't do that today. Yeah, you kind of can. This was taboo. I think if you're edgy enough to try, whether or not you get funding for it is the real issue. But Tropic Thunder it nails so many different things. As much as Hollywood loves to suck itself off for just how great the process of filmmaking is, this movie really roasts all of everything, whether it be filmmakers, executives, or the stars themselves. All of it is like really like inside baseball, just funny shit in this movie. And the better thing is, if you have the director's cut, you have two full comedies there, because Robert Downey Jr. stays in character for that entire time where they do the commentary track. And there are lines in the commentary that are even funnier because you have Robert Downey Jr. in character on the commentary, and you could hear the other actors just losing their shit.
So obviously here's our little homage, or apocalypse homage that was too
That
homage-y.
water was most filthy. But Ben did not give a rat fuck. I come all with respect. Kwang Lao. Hold your cock!
This is a tough one. This was really hard. It was about an hour.
Electrolyte!
And he really had this great idea.
My farm.
For you blowing out your guns. This moment, here's my farms, motherfucker. To me, it was like I really was excited about this moment for years.
My face looked like koi fish stuck inside almond cookie.
You have two start to finish brilliant comedies, and this is kind of cheating, but the fact that I've seen those, I'm counting it as, it's two movies in one if you have the time to do it, because it's a completely different and exciting experience with the commentary track. It's just awesome. And that is my 31, all this time later. Thank you to those of you who have waited as long as you have. Be sure and check out Sean Chandler, Cody Leach, Brian Lomax, and Gen X Reviews' videos, which have gathered dust since I was supposed to be here. Hit a slight snag on the way home from England, as I'm here in New York. But I appreciate anybody who's here, regardless. Keep an eye out, as we will have something else in just a few months now. I got to get back to work all of a sudden again. I would also like to give a shout out to Budster Brown, as he released his own version of May's 31 on 31, while not being sanctioned and yet still releasing months before my video. He gave proper credit for the inspiration to Autopstream, with channel mentions, logos, and so on. So considering we're doing comedy this time, Budster, I will give you a thank you and an homage using the movie that I would have suggested for number 31.
Okay. Nice catch, Hayes. Don't ever fucking do it again. All right, let's go. Let's get it going.
Seriously, it's quite a neat list, and it's nice to have a well-edited fan entry. Keep your head near that phone, Budster. Who knows, next time we do a Make-A-Wish project for 31 on 31, you might be replacing me.